Welcome into the Stack Check Sports Show. Last night we had round one of the NFL draft, a special double episode upload today. We had the Valorant video that went live a little earlier. Now we're dropping my reaction to all the picks in round one. So let's just kind of go through them at the top, and we'll pause on some of the picks that obviously more people are talking about. I'm looking at you, Atlanta Falcons. So for a draft that had a lot of quarterback talent, a lot of offensive tackle talent, and a lot of people talked about wide receiver talent, that's really who got drafted here in this first round. It was a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of tackles, a lot of receivers. Quarterback was a situation where we had six guys that we were looking at, right? We're looking at Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr. That's kind of your six quarterbacks that everybody who's had their eye on. Would Bo Nix and Michael Penix maybe fall to the second round was a rumor. That rumor did not happen. It started out a very straightforward standard day. There were some rumors that maybe the Patriots would trade down or would try and trade out of the third pick, entice somebody to move up to take a quarterback. But in general, the beginning of this day really felt very standard. We all kind of expected Caleb to go number one. He goes number one. He's a Bear. I don't know what much more to say about that. My prediction, I'm not sure if he's as good as people say he is. A lot of people putting him in that generational talent argument. I think he struggles a little bit to take the easy stuff. And now, can he learn that? Can he develop as a passer and as a player in his rookie season and beyond? Can he be developed into a great player that does take the checkdowns, that does operate in kind of that surgical manner that you have to in the pros, that you can't get away with so many antics? He's still going to be great in the antics. Great off script. That creative side is still going to be there. But I want to know if he can sit it within a system a little bit better in pros. Jaden Daniels going to the Commanders. We kind of saw that one coming as well. Cliff Kingsbury, new offensive coordinator of the Commanders, has worked with running quarterbacks before. The big question was, would they maybe take Drake May or Jaden Daniels? That was kind of a bit of a debate there in that second spot. Most people kind of universally say Caleb's the best prospect that we had in this draft. Then it was Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Where do you fit them in? It went about how we expected. Jaden Daniels goes to the Commanders, and then the Patriots take Drake May. Of these first three quarterbacks taken, Drake May, who was the last of those three, I think actually ended up in the worst position. Chicago has some weapons. They made a trade late to shore up the defense a little bit. It's not a terrible spot to land. A little concerned from a coaching perspective if they fire the head coach, kind of clean house again. That could be difficult. We don't want these quarterbacks to fall into that, let's be honest, Baker Mayfield situation where he had 5 or 6 coaches in his first 4 or 5 years. That's not good for anybody's development. Any quarterback's going to really struggle in that situation. So hopefully the Bears can give enough structure and enough stability within the organization to allow Caleb to thrive. Jaden Daniels, I think, might have gone to the best spot of those three. Plenty of weapons. McLaurin's a definite number one receiver. They've got some running backs, some tight ends. The offense is feeling okay. Defense, they did move some pieces off, so that got worse. But from a coaching perspective, new ownership, Commanders seem like they're kind of building something a little bit. Seem like they're building something that's kind of cool. Also, not the hardest division. Dallas seems to be kind of falling down a little bit. The Eagles had a really weird last year, so we got to see what they look like. And then the Giants are nothing to write home about. They're pretty bad. So I think division-wise, you feel okay going to the Commanders. The Patriots, regardless if we talk division or coaching staff, they just have no weapons. This team is just decimated after the leaving of Bill Belichick. He really hasn't got good skill position players on that offense. since Tom Brady was there. I mean, let's be honest. It's Gronk is like the last good skill position player, right? And he was a tight end. That was many years ago. So the Patriots is just a tough situation on offense. There's just, I mean, I don't know who you're throwing the ball to, right? Moving on, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cardinals, they had their quarterback. They're sticking with Kyler Murray for now. He's under contract. Let's get him some weapons. Marvin Harrison Jr., very solid weapon. Chargers. Now, this was the first that I think was a little surprising to some people because the Chargers already have Slater playing left tackle. So the Joe Alt pick seems a little weird. Great player out of Notre Dame. Highest rated tackle by PFF. So it's a good pick. He's probably, if you're talking like best available players, it's probably Joe Alt there. But that was like one of the very few spots on that Chargers team. You know, quarterback, left tackle. They kind of needed everything else. I'm surprised they didn't choose to go with maybe a Malik Neighbors here. Get some weapons. Receivers are leaving the Chargers. They've had injury problems. They're getting older. Yeah, we can't keep relying on Mike Williams and Keenan Allen out there. They're never available. And now they're moving on, right? So I think a wide receiver probably was the better pick, but Jim Harbaugh loves to run kind of that power offense. And something they said on the broadcast that I think was interesting. Nick Saban was pointing it out. As the league kind of moves back and forth, right? As we've gotten into this spread everybody out, make everybody guard in space, the defenses are getting smaller and faster. And it's starting to become a situation where you might be able to push some of these defenses around because they've gotten so small and so fast. They're all about covering people in space. Oh, line up the big boys and just run at them. Might start to become an option. Ravens are already kind of doing this, right? Hey, you get a bunch of DBs out there. You're in extra DB sets. You only got 2 linebackers out here. We're going to run the ball. And that could be the strategy that Jim Harbaugh is going with, saying, you know what? There is a really solid offensive tackle here on the board. He's available. Let's take him, and maybe they move Alt to right tackle, or maybe Slater doesn't want to play left anymore, wants to move to right, and Alt can slot in. Or you could be going, let's get cheaper, and maybe there's a trade for Slater. Maybe that's the idea. Go get a bunch of pieces for him. I don't think that's going to happen because, let's be honest, if you can have 2 all-pro tackles, that is a fantastic offensive line. You turn into the Cowboys of a few years ago with Zeke, right? When Dak was a rookie. That offensive line was so good, they were just winning games because of the offensive line. So maybe that's the strategy. Harbaugh, I think he's a great player, was not confident in the fit. But Harbaugh coming from college, he's got a few Notre Dame people on the staff. I think they were really talking him up. There you go, Joe Alt moving there. Giants, they're stuck with Daniel Jones. There was some slight rumors that maybe they'd take a quarterback, but taking a quarterback at 6, I think, was probably out of their wheelhouse. Let's get Daniel Jones another weapon, especially with Saquon Barkley moving on. You need more weapons on that offense. It's just Daniel Jones is limited, so load up. You're stuck with them. You paid him the contract. Worst contract, I think, in all of NFL right now. Titans, another solid tackle. This is what we had said. Everybody was talking about it coming in. Tackles, quarterbacks, wide receivers. First 7 picks, all of them are quarterbacks, wide receivers, or tackles. Actually, it continues on to the top 10, 11, 12 picks were all quarterbacks, tackles, or wide receivers. Not surprised about the Titans one. They have Will Levis coming into his 2nd season. Sure up that offensive line. Lock it in. Give the young kid a chance. Now, 8 is the pick we're probably going to spend the most time on. The Atlanta Falcons draft Michael Penix Jr. I'll be honest. I'm very high on Michael Penix Jr. coming into this draft. I think he's one of the better throwers of the football, and I think he's got underrated athleticism. I think he protected himself in college because of the injuries. Now, that injury history is there, and that is a little concerning, and he is older because of it, right? A couple of redshirt years because of injuries and those kinds of things, and the COVID year. So he is older. But I thought he was a very solid, level-headed kid. A lot of people talked about his leadership abilities, and he can sling it. Might be one of the better throwers of the football in this whole draft, right? But Atlanta doesn't need a quarterback. Doesn't need a quarterback. They just signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. 2 of the years are guaranteed. So this brings up the question, why would Atlanta draft a quarterback? The other thing that I would like to note is not only did Atlanta draft a quarterback, but they drafted the oldest, most injury-prone quarterback. Because my first thought was, well, okay, Kirk Cousins, he is getting a little bit older. He's coming off a pretty gnarly injury. They wanted a solid backup. But if you're going to pick up a solid backup, you're either going to go in free agency, go find yourself one of these journeyman quarterbacks and bring them in, or you draft one of the younger guys that's maybe a little more raw, maybe a J.J. McCarthy, I think makes a lot more sense. He's a little younger. Some people are not so sure about him as a quarterback. He's a little raw compared to Penix. Penix is probably the most polished, most you know what you're going to get of the quarterback prospects. Him and Bo Nix probably fall into that category of like most ready to start right away. Obviously, Caleb Williams, sure. But if we're talking about the quarterbacks that were available to the Falcons, they can't get Drake May, they can't get Jaden Daniels, they can't get Caleb. They're all gone. J.J. McCarthy makes a lot more sense to me than Michael Penix. And more sense than Bo Nix. I would have some of the similar concerns about Bo Nix of like, okay, this guy's a little older. Now, Bo Nix doesn't have the injury history. So again, of the 3 quarterbacks that are sitting there, out of our 6 that we named at the beginning, I'm leaning towards both of the other ones over Michael Penix for the Falcons. I think Michael Penix might be a better prospect. I would lean in that direction that Michael Penix is the better quarterback than those other 2. But he just doesn't fit in Atlanta. So that was my first thought. Well, maybe it's just a backup, but that just doesn't make any sense. So why would they draft him? Well, you could say, okay, they're drafting him because they just want Kirk Cousins to teach him, coach him up. They want to do the Jordan Love thing, the Patrick Mahomes thing, the Aaron Rodgers thing. Really, it's not the Patrick Mahomes thing because he didn't have to wait that long. But Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, both of them took years before they got to play. Again, problem, Michael Penix is older. So that pick makes no sense. The only thing, and this is kind of a wild scenario, but the only thing that could be concerning is the Falcons, there's currently some investigation by the NFL into tampering regarding the Falcons and Kirk Cousins and no contact periods and things like that, because there's rules about how free agency can work. You can't contact certain players during certain times. It is possible that people within both camps colluded and broke some rules. Now, the penalty for that, they're not going to send Kirk back to Minnesota just because of some tampering stuff. It would most likely be some pretty hefty fines, maybe a suspension for a few games. I don't think it would be a suspension for a season. That to me would seem pretty egregious. But is that what Atlanta is thinking? Are they thinking, hey, we got a playoff team, but Kirk might be out for a few games because of this suspension, because of this tampering case? Do they know that they did it? Are they acting a little guilty here? You're going to have to let me know in the comments. But I think this does look a little guilty. Like maybe they did some things they shouldn't have to get Kirk. And because of that, Cousins might get suspended for a period of time. And they were like, hey, we've got a good team. We want to keep in that playoff hunt. And if Kirk Cousins is out for 6 games, I don't know. I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know what the suspension would be. But if he's out for a bunch of games to start the season, we need somebody who we can slot in and win some games with. Is that maybe the strategy? Maybe it's a play from Atlanta to say, hey, we're going to need you this season, and then we're trading you. Could Penix become traded after his rookie year? That would be wild. We'll have to see. We will have to see. Could also, I guess, in a really wild world, be a situation where Atlanta's saying, hey, let's just take him, and then let's trade him right away. But he's not signed yet, so I don't know how that works. Don't know how that works. Atlanta, make it make sense. Atlanta fans in the comments, what happened? I don't understand. Explain it to me. I feel like you're all as confused as I am, though. So the only thing that could make a little sense is that collusion situation, that tampering case. Maybe they expect Kirk Cousins to miss some time. Maybe something with the injury is going on and they're not sure he's going to be ready for the start of the season. That's the only reason this could make sense, because they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. Bears had the 9th pick. 2 picks in the top 10 for the Bears. Make a smart decision. Get Caleb Williams more weapons. Get Rome Odunze. My favorite receiver probably in this draft. Lock him in. Give Caleb some weapons right away. I know Justin Fields somewhere is crying because he couldn't get weapons like that. I'm sorry. Hopefully Justin can have some success in his new location. Then the Vikings take J.J. McCarthy. This seemed like a reasonable play. There was this quick swap from the Vikings and the Jets. And I think this trade, although it was one spot, I think the Vikings were thinking J.J. or Michael Penix. I think that's what this signifies, is the Vikings maybe liked both of them. They saw Penix go, and then the Jets are sitting here at 10, and they know Denver wanted a quarterback. And so this is a box-out move. Hey, let's just swap picks, make sure we get our guy. We liked Penix, we liked McCarthy. Penix is no longer available. We can't let the Denver Broncos jump up 2 spots and take McCarthy and have us get stuck with somebody we don't want. So they make just a quick swap. There was a few later round picks kind of swapped. It essentially works out to somewhat even, right? It's like a 5th for a 6th, and then they move up 1 spot. They're just swapping picks around. Not any big blockbuster aspects to it. So McCarthy gets picked 10th. I don't see it with McCarthy. Of the 6 quarterbacks, he was my 6th ranked quarterback. I'm sorry. He sat behind one of the best offensive lines in football for multiple years. He had fantastic running backs. And I didn't see enough flash or pizzazz throwing the ball. We'll see how he does in the NFL. Maybe he can develop. I feel like with McCarthy, people are still talking about his high school rating, and him taking over for Cade McNamara. But McNamara has proven that he was not very good. So I don't know if that's like a huge accomplishment, right? Jets take a tackle. Thankfully, they took a tackle. There were some late rumors that they might try and get a wide receiver or somebody. No. If you're the Jets, you just got to protect Aaron Rodgers. So they take the tackle out of Penn State. I think it's a reasonable pick. Then the Broncos take Bo Nix. This was, I don't know, if I was sitting there live betting the draft, this would have been the best bet. I knew this was going to happen. Denver Broncos taking Bo Nix. It's a match made in heaven. This is Sean Payton getting essentially a slightly more athletic, taller Drew Brees, the quarterback he had the most success with. Yes, there's the Zach Wilson trade. They'll battle it out, sure. have a capable backup. But Bo Nix, I think, is the starter in Denver. I think he fits really well in Denver. He might have landed in the best spot of all the quarterbacks as far as having an opportunity to play quickly and having a lot of talent around him. The Raiders then took Brock Bowers. This was probably the other big confusing one to me, maybe in the entire draft. Atlanta, and then the Raiders taking Bowers. The Raiders took Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame, the tight end, highly rated tight end, last year. And then they take Bowers this year. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. You already have Mayer. Everybody on Twitter was like, yeah, well, these 2 tight end sets are going to be amazing. Okay, sure. But I think this might be a situation where Vegas really kind of wanted to take one of the 6 quarterbacks. But all of a sudden, at pick 13, they're all gone. And then they said, well, who's the most interesting player on the board? Brock Bowers. Absolutely. Tight end, fast, athletic, catches the ball, runs great routes. He was one of the more interesting chess pieces you can get. And so they said, best available chess piece. Since we're not going to get a quarterback, we're going to rock it with who we have right now. Get a couple of tight ends. Mayer and Bowers. Whoo. Those are 2 really solid tight ends as far as, projections go out of college. Run them in 2 tight end sets. Run the ball a lot. Protect the inexperience and maybe lack of talent you have at quarterback. I could see it working. It still feels a little weird to me, but I think they were really in a situation where they thought somebody, maybe the Falcons wouldn't take a quarterback, right? And one of those 3 guys, Nix, Penix, McCarthy, that one of those 3 would be available to them at 13. But it just didn't work out that way. So there you go. That's it. Bowers pulls in with the Raiders. It feels weird, but it is what it is. Then we had, I think, a pretty standard draft the rest of the way. Took until pick 15 to finally get an edge taken. A defensive player was taken. Byron Murphy's a beast. Fits well with Seattle. They needed some inside help. Makes sense. Saints offensive tackle again. Again, this was a deep offensive tackle, offensive lineman draft. Vikings get an edge. They traded up for it. Jacksonville trades down for it. They liked this. I think this was a situation where Vikings liked Turner, right? They saw Latu go and went, ooh, let's get up and go get Turner, because they weren't going to get him away from the Colts. But since they didn't pick him, let's just make sure the Rams, who probably needed an edge, doesn't steal their pick, right? So they trade up and they get Dallas Turner, edge out of Alabama. I think it's a good pick. Amarius Mims was another slightly concerning one. There was some rumblings on Twitter. Just because he only has 8 college starts. 8. That's not a lot to go off of. He's a bit of a project, but intangibles as far as size, strength, quickness, fantastic. He's a freak athlete. So Bengals shoring up that offensive line with this pick to try and protect Joe Burrow. The thing is, he's just a bit of a project. We're not 100% sure he's going to be a day 1 starter, which is tough. But the Bengals obviously believe that he is. They've done their research, and those scouts believe, yes, he can start, and he will make us better right away. That's the key to me. First-round draft picks have to be somebody who's going to play day 1, or at least you think can play day 1. I don't know if Mims is that guy, but coaching staff and the scouts do believe that. He's blocked at tackle in some big games, in college football playoff games. So obviously Georgia felt when he was available, he was probably the best guy they could put in there. It's just weird that he only played 8 games. He's huge. And the Bengals need offensive linemen. That's their situation. Joe Burrow is getting hurt too often. He's taken more sacks than any other quarterback in the last few years. That's got to stop. We don't want an Andrew Luck situation with Joe Burrow if you're a fan of football in general. He's a great player. You don't want to see him hurt. So then the Rams take Verse. Great pick. Feels good. Again, the rest of this went pretty standard. No big surprises. This was an interesting situation, though. The Chiefs and Buffalo execute a draft day trade. Anybody remember anything about this? I feel like this has happened before. Oh, yeah. When Buffalo traded away the pick that Kansas City got Patrick Mahomes at. That didn't work out too well for them. Did this work out well for Buffalo? I don't know. We're going to have to see who Buffalo takes. They then traded out of other picks. The 32nd pick. Traded back out of that. So Buffalo didn't even draft in the first round. Kansas City moves up and they take Worthy. To me, this was a genius move by Kansas City. I think Worthy is one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft. And I know that's a bit of a hot take because a lot of people are much lower on him. He is slender. But you know what? Xavier Worthy within an Andy Reid offense with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. The dude's comps were Tyreek Hill. We know how that worked out. Really, really well. There's a Super Bowl ring with that. And in a situation where you might not know what's going on with Rice, car accident, tragic car accident, is he going to be suspended? Is he going to be in jail potentially for a period of time? That court case is going on. Go grab Worthy, who you can use as a chess piece for the ultimate grandmaster, Andy Reid, and the best quarterback in football, Patrick Mahomes, to utilize. The Chiefs don't have a lot of holes. So to move up, grab their guy that they obviously liked, I think this is going to be a beautiful fit. Little scary for the rest of the league, I think. They're all sitting there going, oh, crap. The Chiefs got another weapon. Last season, we were like, oh, they might be beatable because they don't have a lot of consistent weapons. They just got another weapon after winning a Super Bowl. What the heck? Again, is Andy Reid still coaching? Is Spagnuolo still running the defense? And is Patrick Mahomes still the quarterback? I think the Chiefs are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. And they're just adding pieces at this point. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. Very smart move by the GM. Move up, get their guy. Xavier Worthy, great pick. Cowboys, traded with Detroit for this one. Yeah. Offensive tackle. Good. They are needing some offensive linemen, but for a Dallas Cowboys team that had talked about being all in free agency and basically signing nobody, and then we're going to be all in on the draft and really not making any exciting moves on draft day in the first round. I don't know what Dallas is doing. The Dallas championship window has closed, in my opinion. Dak's too expensive, and I don't trust him. So, cool. Got a new offensive tackle. They needed it. They needed offensive linemen. That offensive line that was so great, we were talking about that with the Chargers pick of adding another offensive lineman when they already had a great one. That offensive line is starting to get a little old there for the Cowboys. It's been a while since they were, completely dominant. And Guyton's a decent player out of Oklahoma. There you go. Ravens get Wiggins. Another cornerback. This is a classic Ravens pick. Load up that defense. That defense is good. It's going to be better with him, right? Nothing much to say there. I think the only other situation was Ricky Pearsall. There was some confusion out of 49ers fans. But let's be real here. The 49ers, their roster's so deep. It's so deep. They don't really have a lot of needs. And Pearsall's a solid wide receiver in a situation where right now, let's be honest, San Francisco's dealing with some contract issues in their wide receiver room. It's getting a little expensive to pay all of those guys. And they all deserve it, but it's getting a little expensive to have all of them on one team. So San Francisco picks up Ricky Pearsall, probably the best route runner, available at the time for sure. And he's the kind of piece that Shanahan is going to love. And that rounds out the 32 picks. Panthers move up, get Bryce Young a weapon. That's solid. He's a good target. A lot of people compare him to a Deebo Samuel, body type, big physical target. That'll help Bryce Young. Absolutely. And I think that was a smart move by Carolina to get in and grab themselves that pick. So that's my thoughts. All 32 picks. The most confusing one is the Falcons. I don't know what they're doing. Let me know in the comments down below what you think they're doing. Is this all just a situation where they're acting real guilty right now and maybe Kirk Cousins is going to get suspended? I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite pick of the draft was. I think for me, the Worthy pick feels great as far as just a very simple, solid move. And Bo Nix to Denver just feels like a great fit to me. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and we'll see you tomorrow.